Hello, everybody. We are about to get started in the Eric Clapton webcast here. I'm going to teach you some stuff about Clapton. I'm going to give a minute to let everybody sort of filter into the room and stuff, so I'll just kind of play some blues, and if you want to jam with me, you're at home, go ahead and jam. We'll get started in a couple minutes just to, like I said, let everyone sort of get filtered in. Periodically, I'm just going to check to make sure that everyone's in the room and everyone's okay, so just hang out for a couple minutes, and we'll get going pretty soon. All right, I do want to ask if everyone out there who's watching right now, we're just about to get started with the Eric Clapton webcast, so I want to make sure that everyone can hear me and see me okay. So if you can go ahead and just kind of type into the comment section, make sure everyone's kind of good, got a good connection, and can hear everything all right. Let me know so on my end I can make any adjustments if needed. Anyway, we're going to start in a couple minutes. Just kind of give a minute or two to let everyone sort of get filtered into the to their room here, and we'll get started learning some Clapton, playing some blues. So let me know if you can hear me and that everything sounds good and the video works all right. So thanks. Give me a second. All right, well, it looks like we've already got one question here. William's asking, in what key does Eric most often play? Well, while everyone's kind of like filtering into the room and stuff and getting adjusted, I'll go ahead and talk to you, William. Eric plays a lot in kind of standard guitar keys, like keys like A, E, D, and various keys where open strings aren't really a problem. If you're playing in a key like B flat or something, you can't really use pretty much any of the open strings. You can use one or two here and there depending on what chord you're playing. But being a blues player like Eric, you want to be able to have. It's a very guitar-y thing to play in those types of keys, E, A, D, G, C, things where you can use a lot of open strings, because a lot of the times when you're playing, you got this like and you're using a lot of open strings, even if you're doing licks, that kind of stuff. And if you're in like a key like C maybe, you can do a lot of stuff with maybe an open G or an open E. But generally speaking, he uses keys that are, standard guitar stuff. Like I said, E, A, D, G, C. Of course, he does stuff in different keys and varies things, but it also depends a lot on his voice, right? Because he has to play things that are within his register. So if you stick to kind of guitar-friendly keys, you should be pretty much all right. Your standard blues stuff. If you look at like all the great blues guitarists, they pretty much always played in the same type of keys. They very rarely play in like D flat major or A flat major or something. They don't really do that all that often. It's really kind of standard stuff. Clapton's not like a crazy, harmonic jazz guy like Joe Pass or something. He's a lot more simplified and kind of like pulled back. And with Clapton, it's a lot more about the music and the phrasing than it is about anything else. So I hope that kind of helps answer your question a little bit. And I do want to say, if anyone else has any questions, please let me know, because just type them in and let me know, because I want to make sure that everyone gets their questions addressed. So we got an hour, so we should get through a lot of material. Once again, I just want everyone to make sure that I want to make sure that everyone can hear me and see me okay. So just let me know that you can, and we're good. So let's see here. Cool. All right, so we're going to talk about the blues because Clapton is far and away probably like the most successful blues player of all time. He's definitely been around longer than any other blues player. I mean, B.B. King recently died. There's Buddy Guy is still alive. But for the most part, Clapton's career has been like just, he's been kind of like riding this pinnacle of success for 40-something years, maybe even 50. I don't know. I haven't done the math, but a long time. And it's all based on his history and his like love of the blues. So if you're going to learn Clapton, you got to understand the blues, and you got to understand the intricacies of the blues and what makes the blues so special and so raw and emotional. Because that's the secret to Clapton's playing. He's not, you know, like crazy tapping or anything. He doesn't do any of that. He doesn't like even really play all that fast. He doesn't play, you know, crazy harmonically challenging chords. He doesn't do stuff like that. He plays simply, and he plays what needs to be played, and that's the most important bit. So I want to talk a little bit about the 12-bar blues, and to do that, we're going to basically just go with a simple E blues. And when you're playing the blues, like 95% of the time, you're going to use what's called a dominant chord, which is otherwise known as a 7th chord. So if you ever see like a chord marking like E7, that's exactly what I'm talking about. And what that is, it's like a major chord, but with a little one-note difference, right? So if you play like an E major, and you're playing an E major blues, that's going to work fine. But what you can do is you can add the 7th degree of the scale, which is what makes it a 7th chord. And in order to find out what the 7th degree of the scale is, you take whatever chord you're playing. So in this case, we're playing E, and you go down 2 half steps or 2 frets. Now, obviously, we can't go down 2 frets from an open E string, but if you find E right here, or on the 12th fret right here, some fretted E, you can go down 2 half steps, and you find the note D. So if you add a D to an E major chord, you get an E7. So here's your E major, and then you add a D, which is right here on the 2nd string 3rd fret. Now all of a sudden you've got an E7. And that works for pretty much any 7th chord you want. So if you're looking for an A7, you go to A right here, go down 2 half steps, and you get a G. So you add a G to an A chord. Here's your A chord, and you have 2 choices of a G. You can add an open G, which is a really common fingering, by kind of playing open A, 2nd fret, open, 2nd fret, and then open. And that gives you your A7 chord. Or you can also just play your regular bar A chord and add the G with your finger right here on the 1st string. So that kind of, like I said, it works for every chord, which will also cover the B7. So once again, if you go up to B, or you can take B here, and you go down 2 half steps, you're left with A. That means in a B chord, you can play a B7 by adding an A. So if this is your regular B chord, so your 2, 4, 4, 4, you kind of readjust your fingers so that now you have this A on the 2nd fret, and you're barring the 2nd fret to get 2nd fret, 4th fret, 2nd fret, 4th fret. Like that. And there's a whole bunch of different variations of 7th chords, but I just want to let you know, no matter what key you're in, if you're looking to add the 7th, the dominant 7 to the chord, you just go down 2 steps from the root, and that's the note you use to add to the chord. So once again, let me know if anybody has any questions. If they're not understanding, there's a bunch of lessons I've done on 7th chords and 7th chord harmony and blues harmony and stuff like this. But I'm still here to answer your questions, so let me know. All right, so if we're playing an E blues, there are a few like really kind of key tricks that help you get a blues sound. You know, everyone's heard this lick. down what I'm doing there because it's really important. But before I do that, I want to talk about the scales that you can use to play over a 7th chord. So we're going to take our root chord E, E7. Now, a lot of players, when they're playing a blues, you know, if you're going like, if you're playing that, a lot of players will jump straight into the pentatonic scale, the E minor pentatonic scale. And over this, you can play your E minor pentatonic scale. It's going to sound fine, but that's not your only option. In fact, it's one of 2 incredibly easy options. And the trick is, everyone knows their minor pentatonic scale, I hope. It's like the first scale you should learn. And if you're trying to play Clapton, you got to know the pentatonic scale. So if we're going to do the E pentatonic scale, that's it right there. But that's the E minor pentatonic scale. And since we're playing an E major chord, there's a couple notes that are different. And they're going to sound okay because it's the bluesy sound that you're looking for. But you can get a variation on that bluesy sound. So take a listen to this scale I'm going to play and see what it sounds like to you. Right? So it has a totally different feel between this and this. Now, what I'm doing is I'm basically playing 2 different minor pentatonic scales, but in within like the same type of tonality. And so I'm playing this E minor pentatonic scale that you already know, but I'm also playing C sharp minor. You know, that's the other option that you can use. And the way to think about it is, if you're starting your E minor pentatonic scale over an E chord, here's your root note right here. So all you have to do is, instead of starting your scale here on your first finger, you put your pinky on the root note, and then you play the pentatonic scale that will correspond with your pinky landing there. So like that. And that gives you a very major sound when you're playing over a blues. So this is the difference. I'm gonna kind of loop a little blues progression so you can hear it kind of like in context. So here we go. There's my blues. Now on top of that, I'll play E minor. That's something. Now I can play E major or the C sharp minor. And you can hear that it's a totally different feel, really different. And if you can blend those 2 tonalities, then you can really capture a lot of what Clapton does. Because he really uses them both interchangeably, and he does so by kind of including in his phrasing this idea of antecedent consequence or question and answer, right? And the way he does that, the way he approaches his soloing or his lead playing, is he'll take a lick, you know, maybe in, let's say in our minor pentatonic. right there. Maybe just something simple. And then he'll answer that. So that's like the question. And then the answer will be something like that, right? So the idea is to kind of phrase using the notes within the scale as words in a sentence. You know, not necessarily thinking of patterns of like, he doesn't play like that at all. He plays very vocally, so he uses the notes as he would words, right? So if you change between the minor pentatonic and the major pentatonic, so if you change between E minor pentatonic and E major, you change between them, between your question and your answer, it's going to have a very cool, very useful effect. So if I like want to ask a question, and then my answer, something like that, right? So I change my position from here to here. And I'm switching between the minor and major pentatonics to help get that sound. Now that's key to the blues, because if we're playing, here, let me turn the distortion off here. If we're playing a blues in the key of E, E7, there's that lick I told you about that. So I want to cover that, because that is a really useful tool in understanding how these two tonalities work together. So if we take our E right here, we know our E minor pentatonic scale fits right here. So if this is like the top of your minor pentatonic scale, E minor, you go up a half step, okay? And that is your kind of, your bluesy type note that you're going to be kind of like playing with a lot. And the way to tell what it is you take the third step of your chord. And this, like I said, this it goes for any key. So we're just doing it in the key of E, but it works in any key. So E chord, E major, is made up of 3 notes: E, G sharp, and B. And this G sharp here is major. If you play a G natural, which is an open G, you get a minor. Everyone knows how to play an E minor chord, I hope. It's just like that. And E major is just like that. So the only difference is the G to G sharp. And that's how you get that bluesy sound. And you put that anywhere you want. So if we go from G here to G sharp to an open E, you automatically have a really bluesy sound. Now the cool thing about this is that you can do this pretty much anywhere. You know, if we're here in our minor pentatonic, what I'm doing is I'm taking the G here, which is equivalent to the open G up here, and I'm hammering on to G sharp, like that. Something he does all the time. Right there. So you can kind of use this third degree of the chord to kind of play between minor and major. So minor, major. And that's what gives it that sound. Right? Something like that. So what I just did, I'm basically thinking of an E minor pentatonic scale with an optional G sharp attached to it. So instead of just starting on the G sharp, I always kind of slide or hammer into it. So that's how I start. I kind of slide into G sharp, open E, and then D. And then I play an A right here, open G, hammer on, and then my root note right there. And there you get like a really bluesy idea that works perfectly in the key of E or E7. So once again, anybody got any questions or anything, let me know. I do want to make sure that everyone gets their topics addressed, so keep chiming in if you got anything to say. Tony over here, yes, you can definitely, Tony Gable, yes, you can definitely benefit from this webcast if you only have acoustics, because we're talking about the blues. And if you think about the blues, it all started on acoustics, you know? Clapton didn't even have an electric guitar for the first few years of his guitar playing career. He only had an acoustic. So the concepts and theories we're talking about are all the same. We're not talking about Van Halen, whammy bar, dive bombs, and tapping and stuff. This is all stuff you can definitely do on an acoustic. And then William wants to know when we think in triplets. Triplets are kind of a feel. Well, I'll address that in a minute, because I don't want to lose track of this concept that we're at right now. But we'll get to the triplet thing in a second. That's a feel issue, so you're like kind of how it changes the feel. So once again, if we're playing over E minor pentatonic, you can, and that's maybe take that A, do something like that, and that is the basis for. All right, so that lick, what we're doing is we're starting by sliding into the G sharp, but with another note attached to it. So we're going to take our pinky on the G, and then our ring finger, same fret, third string. And you're going to have to either pick, like with your pick and your fingers, or just your pick and kind of bounce back and forth. But what we're doing, we're starting with our ring finger, and we're kind of sliding into the B note right here on the 4th fret. And then we play the 1st string and back to the 3rd string. And then we do the same thing here. And then maybe do like a little trill where you're hammering on and pulling off really quickly on the G to G sharp. And then we hit a low E, and then open A, and climb up to a B. Play a B7 chord, or you can, and we take that low G and hit to that G sharp. Remember, if you're playing the blues, you want to use that minor third, major third combo. That's everywhere, right? So you can, and that's basically like that idea. You can also, of course, do it up here. It's the exact same thing. If you envision your 12th fret as your open strings, here's your G. So you take that with your pinky and you slide up. Like that. Now, this is a perfect example, perfect segue to talk about triplets. Because triplets, if you listen, triplet, 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 right? So when you're playing a blues, there's 2 types of blues. Well, there's a lot more than 2, but there's 2 main types of feels. There's a straight feel and there's a shuffle feel. And a straight feel is really kind of very driving and very kind of like, I don't want to say robotic, but very, I what's the word I want to use? Maybe regimented a little bit. So a straight feel would be like like that, right? Now a shuffle feel is a lot different. And that feel is where triplets really kind of come into play, because with that bum, ba-bum, 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 those are like having the first and last of a triplet with the middle one missing. So it's like bum, 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 bum. You take that middle one out of the triplet, 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 dun, 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 dun. And that's how you get that shuffle feel. And the closer last note to the first one, the closer you put that last eighth note to the next downbeat, the more of a shuffle you'll have. So if you go like dun, 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 and you put that last one a little bit farther, that kind of a feel, right? So if you're playing a shuffle feel, you'll notice it instantly. Stevie Ray Vaughan, Pride and Joy. Triplet, 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 bum, ba, bum, ba, bum, ba, bum, ba, bum, ba, bum, ba, bum. Like that, right? That's your triplet feel. And so if you're playing in a triplet, with a triplet feel, you get this dun 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 dun. Right, like that. And Clapton uses triplet, like a triplet feel, really pretty often, and he'll do stuff that's very simplistic, but yet fits really nicely in like in the triplet feel. So, for example, we'll stick with this idea of going from G to G sharp, like a lick like that. You know, if you have the loop. Anyone guess? Is that shuffle or is that straight? It's a shuffle. Right? Okay, so what I'm doing there, I'm playing like basically this is like an outline of a Clapton lick. That's something he does all the time. So if you take your E major chord up here and you include that hammer on from G to G sharp, you're left, and you take your ring finger off, you're left with this. 13, 12, 12. So if we start with a hammer on from G to G sharp, da-dun, and there's your shuffle. And 1, 2, 3, and triplet, triplet, triplet. Okay, so what I'm doing, hammering on. So it's like if I was counting, it'd be like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. So the 1 is the G sharp, and I climb up that little E major. And then I'm continuing in my E minor pentatonic scale, because you can use the pentatonic scale as long as you're kind of including that G sharp every once in a while. So I'm just kind of climbing up this E major shape and then playing D with my pinky, first finger B, and then I'm climbing down A, and then once again hammer on from G to G sharp. And then maybe, instead of going to D, I go to C sharp. Why? Anybody know why? Because C sharp is part of our major pentatonic, right? So I'm blending the two tonalities, the minor and the major, like we talked about earlier, including the G to G sharp and replacing the D with a C sharp. Like that. Now I want to make sure everyone still on board with me here. Anybody got any questions? If you do, let me know, because I want to make sure everyone's well suited here. Like that. And that's another thing Clapton does a lot. He'll finish a phrase and then play like a high note to kind of cap it off. And a lot of the times what he does is he'll play a lick, and whatever note he ends on, in this case we're ending on E, he slides into the octave of E. In this case, I'm sliding to E 17th fret. So you get that really like bluesy Clapton sound. Like that. And if you combine that with some like minor pentatonic licks preceding it, you can really get some cool sounds, you know, like maybe something like that. That's a really Clapton thing. Is what he'll do is he'll take a few notes, like maybe like these three notes, and really play with them and milk them for all they're worth, you know. That type of an idea. So you're kind of starting very simply, if you're like trying to improvise in the style of Clapton, you're starting very simply by kind of limiting yourself to only a select number of notes. In this case, we're just going to take like D, E, G, and A, the two middle strings in our E minor pentatonic. So we'll kind of play like, let me get rid of this loop, and kind of play a slower one. Just kind of jam on this. So there's my loop. So what I did, like once again, I'm just taking these few notes and that's something he does a lot. He'll do like some bends and then like a quick pull off to his first finger. Like that. And it gives you like a very vocal effect. You can imagine singing that. Right? And then after that, he'll include like a little flurry. And most of the time, that's like as fast as Clapton plays. He never really is like shredding and playing all over the place. It's very, very phrase-based, you know? So like I keep saying, you want to make sure that you have a good, solid foundation in your minor and major pentatonic scales and how to control them vocally. Like, you have to hear the pitches in your head before you play them. And that's pretty challenging. And the way to practice that, the best way to practice that, to play what's in your head or in your ear and have it kind of like in real time come out of your guitar, is to limit yourself. So instead of saying, okay, I'm going to stick on this backing track and then I'm going to play over an E minor blues and I'm just going to play over my scale, right? You know, if you're not fully comfortable and you can't get the notes that are in your head out of your guitar, then what you do is you limit yourself. So instead of taking the whole scale, you stick to maximum 4 notes. and you have to phrase and make music with just those 4 notes. So like I was saying, I'll take those, right? And I really have to make good phrases and like convincing music with just that before I can kind of take it any further. So if there's my loop, okay, so basically you really want to think rhythmically. And if you're limiting yourself to like 3 or 4 notes, then your options aren't melodic. They're not, you know, your note choices are so limited that you have to come up with something else creative. And that's the rhythm. And that's what Clapton's really, really good at, is he's insanely good at creating like a solid rhythm. And like using the notes in a rhythmic way, the way you would use vocabulary. Like if you listen to my sentence, my acoustic's hanging on the wall, dun da 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 dun da da dun, right? That's kind of like a similar rhythm, you know. So when you're playing guitar and you're improvising and you're playing like in a position, whatever, 4-note position or something, right? What you want to do is you want to think rhythmically more than melodically. So you want to think, if I'm playing just these notes, what I want to do is think, if I'm hearing this, I want to hear maybe da 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 dum ba bum, right? Da 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 bum ba bum. So that's the rhythm I want, right? And it just happened to be those notes. I can change it, right? And so just by coming up with some random rhythm in my head that I feel matches the loop, then I can kind of command those 4 notes to fit with that rhythm. And if I know those 4 notes are going to work over that chord, regardless of which one I choose, then the rhythm is more important, because all those notes are going to fit, all those notes are going to work. So it's the rhythm that makes it convincing, the rhythm that's going to get the audience or the listener to really kind of grab hold and be connected to your solo or to your improvisation. So hopefully that kind of like phrasing aspect will slowly sink into your playing, because it's like something that's huge in improvisation. It's way more about rhythm than note choices. I mean, Clapton highlights that in pretty much everything he plays. The opening for Wonderful Tonight, right? That's like right? That's all it is. It's just like 3 notes. Right? And that's it. You can even do it here with those same notes. Right? So all I'm doing there, taking those 4 notes I chose, taking the last one with my ring finger A, bending up to B, and releasing, playing my G, and then back to A. And it's all about the feel and the emotion, you know. It's like Miles Davis, you know, playing a note is only 20% of it. The attitude of the guy who plays it is 80%. And that's 100% true. If you listen to Miles, you know, he could play 1 note and just sell the entire audience on just 1 note. And it's the attitude and feel you put behind it. A lot of the feel, especially in Clapton's playing, has to do with vibrato. So if you're like me, vibrato is like a huge thing, and I love different types of vibrato because they kind of convey different things. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. I want to just double check, make sure everyone's caught up to speed here, and make sure everyone, no one has any questions or anything. Once again, if you do, please chime in because that's what I'm here for. So let me know if you've got any questions or if you want anything that's needs some answers. I'd be happy to help. Anyway, what was I talking about? Vibrato. Okay, yeah. So the way you sell this kind of like Wonderful Tonight, because it's not like cool, crazy, insane melody. It's just really beautiful and really simple. And the way you sell it to the audience is by tone and vibrato. And that's how you make one or two notes really sound like you mean it. And that, that I tell all my students and everyone that I teach that that's way more important than learning crazy scales, mixolydian modes, and all the rest of it. That if you can't make music with 2 notes, how are you going to make music with 12 notes? It doesn't make sense. You got to be able to play convincingly no matter what your limitations are. And so vibrato is a way to really do that. If you're playing this and you're going, here, let me turn the delay off so you can hear it. Right? I can tell straight away that there's like zero attitude behind that phrase. Like it was just, I was like, it's like if your kid has like a history test and he'll memorize or she'll memorize the date and name of some monarch from 300 years ago and then the next day completely forget it. That's all it is, just regurgitating information. But in order to really feel it, you have to include some of your, if you were a singer, like I don't sing, right? I suck at singing. But I sing through my guitar, and like a singer, if I'm hitting a note, I don't want it to just be a stale like note like ba and just kind of flatline right there. I want it to sing. I want some tension. Right? Really important to get vibrato. And the various types of vibrato you could do like what's like maybe a more traditional or acoustic style vibrato, because the strings are stiffer on an acoustic guitar. You can't really like be bending and stuff all crazy. So what you do, you kind of take, let's say we're just taking this A right here. Instead of bending it like vertically up and down, we're like kind of pulling and pushing the string. So we take our finger and we pull it and we push it. And we do that kind of a move. And let me turn the sustain on here. You hear it's like wah, 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 wah. Because what I'm literally doing is when I pull it, I'm like stretching the string. And then when I push it towards the bridge, I'm shrinking the string. So it's like expanding and contracting. And you can get a really fast vibrato that way. If you really kind of wiggle back and forth parallel to the string. Right there. Now that's completely different from like your standard rock vibrato. And what I'm doing there, I'm kind of taking the same note and I'm wiggling vertically. Now I don't, when I'm doing vibrato, most of my bending is going like towards the floor. And then as I come back up, I just let it sit in the natural position. I don't go above. I don't go wee, 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 wee. I don't do that. I just bend and release. Right? Now you can do what I was just talking about where you bend down and then you bend up. It's like way more like Hendrixy style, like really psychedelic. And then there's the B.B. King vibrato, which is an entirely different animal completely. the time he does it with his first finger. So let's do it on the G right here. What he's doing, he's taking his first finger and he's playing the note, but he's kind of taking this flat part of the outside portion of his first finger right here and kind of slamming up against the fretboard, right? Underneath. So literally, this part of my finger right here is touching, let's see, what is that? The 11th fret, the actual metal fret is where my finger is being pressed against the fretboard. And I pivot off of that. I'm not even holding on with my thumb, and my fingers are like really kind of spread wide because I use my hand and that like fulcrum point to pivot like that. And that gives me that kind of bending down and bending up sound. And then you just increase the speed, and you can control the speed by throwing your thumb from one side to the next. And B.B. King kind of like brought this about, and Clapton picked up on it straight away because he's a huge blues fan. But he brought this about because he wanted to play slide guitar and he didn't have a slide. And so he wanted that, like, you know, effect of a slide where a slide player kind of wiggles his finger over the string. You can get that same effect or a similar effect using a vibrato. So you got this. And there's that B.B. King right there. Right there. And so what I'm doing there, I'm just kind of climbing up. A, B, C, E. And that's kind of like the main gist behind Wonderful Tonight. So anybody, let's see, nothing? No questions yet? All right, cool. Everyone's on board. So that's kind of like the main feel behind Clapton's soloing, right? He's taking things and making them simple but effective, and that's way more important than anything else. Now with his rhythm playing, he's very, like, his right hand keeps time the way any good guitar player does. If you watch, like I teach a lot of students, and I have like really beginner students and I have really advanced students, so I get to see like the span of you know, the different styles and degrees of guitar playing. And I noticed that at some point after playing consistently for like a few years, students go usually from mapping out like strumming patterns like down, down, up, down, down, that type of a thing, to much more of a free-floating right hand. And that's, or a free strumming right hand. And that's super important, like wildly important, because your timekeeper when you're playing is your right hand. When you're strumming, I'm talking about rhythm playing now. So when you're strumming, you know, and you're kind of doing something like it. Dun, 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 dun. I'm just keeping time with my right hand going back and forth the entire time. Right? So what he does that a lot, but he'll kind of include a lot more funky kind of rhythmic thing. So, you know, if he's doing something like, let me see. Right? That right hand is going the whole time. So, with that, now if you're listening to that, you probably know the song After Midnight, right? And if you hear it, the accents are. And what I'm doing is I'm taking 5th fret A minor, and then I'm jumping up to D minor, same strings 4, 3, and 2, and then playing C minor. So I'm just playing 5th fret, 10th fret, and then 8th fret. So that's the accent, right? Now, if you keep this 16th note pattern going the whole time with your right hand, and you just want to add those hits. That's an excellent way to get comfortable instead of mapping out and thinking down, up, up, down, down, right, left, up, backwards, you know, all that confusing stuff. Instead of thinking that way, you just think like the subdivided beat. In this case, 16th notes. Taka, 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 taka. And then you add the hits, right? And the secret to this is muting. You have to be able to mute, lay your fingers on the strings without pressing, right? I notice a lot of players have problems like muting. A lot of times when they go to mute and they go to lay these fingers, they're like extra fingers that they're not using on the strings, they'll press and do something like that. Like that, and play notes. That's, you know, it's not what we're after. You got to have a really soft touch. You don't want to squeeze the guitar and use a lot of energy. You want to be efficient in your motion and which muscles you're using. You don't want to push too hard. And if your like strings are like, you know, this far off the neck, you want to maybe get your guitar set up so that they're really low, because the softer touch you have, the less energy you use, the more energy you can save, the more efficient you'll play, the better, more comfortably, more relaxed you'll play. Everyone knows that when you're trying to play something, oh, and it's getting fast and difficult, you start tensing and you start tensing, and that's the exact opposite of what you want to do. And that happens a lot when people try to mute, because rather than thinking of a mute as just space, they think of it as, you know, like some sort of action that you have to do. And it's completely the opposite. Instead of muting like, and like throwing your finger on, all you got to do is softly place your finger on. But if you're tense and like, you know, like really kind of straining in your muscles, you're not going to be able to get that soft, just kind of like gentle lay your finger on the string thing. You're going to kind of like slam your finger down, and that's not what you want. So being able to mute is huge. And you can start, like I said, with just getting this. Right there. And then, of course, once you get that involved, then you can add that all. While the right hand is going the whole time. So hopefully that makes sense. Let me see, anybody got any questions here? All right. B.B. King is the best vibrato, asks William. Well, best is relative, right? Vibrato is a personal thing. It's like a personal taste. The B.B. King vibrato is really difficult to do. It's probably the hardest vibrato to really capture because it's fast and you only have one connecting point to the guitar. Your first finger. The other fingers aren't on the way they would be if you were doing like a standard vibrato or this type of a sideways vibrato, right? With the B.B. King, your hand is kind of in the air, so it's a lot harder to do. But best is relative, right? It depends what you're going for. Like, listen to the difference. If I play Wonderful Tonight using B.B. King vibrato versus like some Jimi Hendrix vibrato, it's going to sound very different. Really like huge psychedelic vibrato versus maybe B.B. King vibrato. It's a lot more subtle. And that in itself is a whole lot better than. There's no vibrato at all. A lack of vibrato is like eating plain white rice with no salt, no pepper. No, it's just bland. I mean, sure, it can like sustain you for a while, but it's not going to be all that enjoyable. You know, yeah, technically that's a note, and technically I'm playing Wonderful Tonight, but it doesn't sound like it, and it doesn't sound all that cool because I'm not adding my own like personal emotion. Vibrato is very literally your way of singing on the guitar, you know? Everyone kind of thinks scales and chords and that's what makes a great guitar player. It's totally not. Like, that helps, absolutely. You know, like you need to know various scales and various chords and stuff like this to facilitate what you're doing, but the end result should be quality music and quality phrasing. So adding your own emotion and your own feel, however you want to express that note. Maybe you need to sit down and take some time and reflect on how that note makes you feel, or how the song makes you feel. Wonderful Tonight is obviously not like an aggressive, in-your-face song. It's kind of a sad melody, and so you should have maybe some type of sadness or deep emotion in your playing, and that needs to come across. And everyone has their own different fingering technique, and everyone has their, you know, I don't have the same hands you do. You don't have the same hands I do. So everyone has their own little way of approaching how to convey that emotion, but vibrato is like the #1 way to do it. And so when you're trying to study Clapton, you're really trying to like get involved into his playing. It's the subtlety that really matters. Anyone can play the notes Clapton chooses because they're just pentatonic scales. They're just, you know, relatively simple, but it's sitting down and analyzing, okay, why does this phrase work so well here, and how does he play it so convincingly? And then you have to break things down. And that's exactly what we do in our DVD Creme de la Clapton that's coming up right now. Everyone knows Cream and Clapton and all the rest of it, right? But what you got to know is the songs and the formulas and structures that he uses to help convey his emotion. And if you can kind of emulate that, then your own emotion and your own feeling will come across a lot more easily. So I want to tell you guys a little bit about this Creme de la Clapton DVD that we got coming up right here. So give me 1 second. Here we are. All right. Okay, so here we go. We've got a Creme de la Clapton DVD, and you're going to kind of, with this set of DVDs, you're going to like the licks and riffs to a whole bunch of different Clapton songs, and we're going to kind of break down the bits and pieces of what make those riffs and licks so memorable and so sort of classic Clapton, right? So you're going to kind of, we're going to analyze, and I'm going to teach you obviously how to play the riffs, you know, from Cocaine, After Midnight, Crossroads, Wonderful Tonight, Layla, Down Sally. And in addition to that, we're going to also talk about the rhythm and right-hand strumming technique that we sort of touched on today. So, so what I want to do basically is kind of tell you about the various types of DVD lessons that we have going on. With the Clapton DVD, there we go. I'm back. I don't know what happened. Sorry, guys. With the Clapton DVD, we got a whole variety of different stuff. About like 2 hours plus, something like this, of sorry, hang on. I'm having some technical difficulties here. I don't know what's going on. All right. Well, anyway, I don't know what's happening here. I'm having a little technical problems. Either way, we're having a sale coming up on this Clapton DVD, and it's really, really cool because you got this kind of like variety of options here in your Clapton learning curve. And man, I don't know. Sorry guys. You keep getting randomly cut off. I don't know what's going on. Either way, I'll tell you about it. The Clapton DVD, Creme de la Clapton, you're going to get 2 hours plus, or round about 2 hours of all this material. And you're going to learn how to improvise, play rhythm, have really good solid timing. And in addition to that, you're going to have like 4 or 5 Clapton songs, 5 or 6, I have lost track, somewhere around there. A good number of Clapton songs and their solos like really solidly in your fingers so that you can pull them out and play them. And the cool thing about it is, like I keep saying, is that this stuff is really simple, so you can include it in virtually any song you play, you know? They're all in, like we talked about in the beginning, very guitar-friendly keys. So you can kind of transpose, you know, this one lick from Clapton, from Layla. You can take the, you know, some solo lick from there and put it in an entirely different key, and it'll still work well because it just fits in your natural guitar positions, your pentatonic positions and stuff. So we're going to cover a lot of material like that. And if you get in there early, and if you get this DVD right now, you're going to get a discount on that. And with the DVD, you're going to get a whole host of variety of techniques and little musical tricks and tips and stuff that Clapton uses that are really, like I said, very user-friendly. You're going to have them in your fingers, and then like 5 minutes later, they're going to just be right there, and they're going to be there 5 years later, right? It's something that you like learn and you never forget. It's like riding a bike. Clapton stuff is that simple. The difficulty comes in interpreting those licks and playing them convincingly. So make sure to get Creme de la Clapton, the DVD, and there's a link you can check out. Make sure you go to that link. It is, let me get it for you right now. It is, let's see here. It is playguitarlikeclapton.com/DVD. And you'll get, instead of a $30 DVD, you'll get it for $24.95, but only for the first 100 copies. So if you get in there early, you can get a couple hours of Clapton lessons for virtually nothing, and the stuff is going to stick with you for a very, very, very long time. And that's something that can be very useful for any aspiring guitar player. So I hope you guys had some fun and you learned some cool stuff today. And I hope to see you again on our next webcast next month. But until then, get some Clapton licks and riffs under your fingers and jam away. I think you'll have some fun. Take it easy, guys.